Today is not an ordinary Tuesday. This is March 3rd, 2026 knees, and I sense in my spirit that this is a day of divine alignment, a day of calculated movement, a day where heaven is releasing blueprints instead of confusion. You did not wake up by accident. You were summoned into this day with purpose, clothed in authority, and armed with strategy. The Spirit of God is not calling you to move randomly. He is calling you to move with precision and power. There are seasons when God tells you to wait, and there are seasons when He commands you to advance. This is not a waiting season. This is a strategic advancement season. Every step you take must be intentional. Every word you speak must be calibrated. Every decision you make must be Spirit-led, because when precision meets obedience, power is activated. And when power is activated, barriers begin to crumble, doors begin to swing open, and resistance begins to bow. You have circled that mountain long enough. You have tolerated delay long enough. You have analyzed, prayed, prepared, and positioned yourself, and now the Lord says, advance. But this advancement is not reckless. It is not emotional. It is not reactionary. It is strategic. It is surgical. It is divinely orchestrated. God is sharpening your discernment so that you no longer waste energy in the wrong direction. He is giving you clarity so you can move without hesitation. Today's atomic prayer is about alignment. It is about acceleration without chaos. It is about moving forward without losing balance. You will not be distracted by noise. You will not be intimidated by opposition. You will not be paralyzed by fear. You will move like a commander who has already seen the victory in the spirit realm. Because before anything manifests in the natural, it is settled in the supernatural. There is power in precision. When you move in sync with divine timing, you don't have to force outcomes. When you move according to heaven's strategy, you don't have to fight unnecessary battles. God is about to show you where to invest your energy, where to withdraw your presence, and where to establish dominion. This is about strategic positioning for exponential results. So I need you to prepare your heart right now. Silence every internal doubt. Cancel every negative narrative. Shift your mindset from survival to advancement. Today, we are not praying small prayers. We are making bold declarations. We are activating divine intelligence. We are stepping into momentum. This is your moment to move with precision. This is your moment to move with power. This is your moment to advance strategically, confidently, and unapologetically. Divine alignment before movement means you refuse to step into action until you have first stepped into agreement with heaven. It is the discipline of seeking God's blueprint before drafting your own. Too many people move because they feel pressure, urgency, or competition. But strategic advancement does not begin with pressure. It begins with positioning. When you are aligned with the will of God, you are not striving for success. You are executing an assignment. And there is a difference between striving and executing. Striving exhausts you. Execution empowers you. Alignment is about synchronization. It is about making sure your thoughts echo heaven's thoughts, your words reflect heaven's language, and your actions mirror heaven's intent. When you are out of alignment, even good ideas become costly mistakes. When you are out of alignment, effort increases but impact decreases. But when you are aligned, there is an unusual grace that accompanies your movement. Doors respond differently. Resistance weakens. Timing becomes favorable. You begin to see divine orchestration in what others would call coincidence. Before God moves you forward, He aligns you internally. He aligns your mindset, your motives, and your maturity. Because if your character cannot sustain the level you are praying for, advancement becomes sabotage. Divine alignment purifies your intentions. It forces you to ask, why do I want this? Is this ego or is this assignment? Is this ambition or is this obedience? Alignment confronts your motives before it accelerates your movement. You cannot move with precision if you are emotionally unstable. You cannot advance strategically if you are spiritually disconnected. Divine alignment demands stillness before strategy. It requires you to silence external noise so you can hear internal instruction. In stillness, God recalibrates your thinking. He exposes hidden fears. He reveals misplaced loyalties. He highlights distractions you have normalized. Alignment is often uncomfortable because it dismantles what you have grown attached to but what heaven never endorsed. When you seek alignment, you are essentially saying, Lord, adjust me before you advance me. That prayer requires humility. It requires surrender. It requires the courage to allow God to redirect you even when you have already invested time and energy in a particular path. Alignment may require you to step back before you step forward. It may require you to close a door you worked hard to open. But strategic advancement is never about how fast you move. It is about how accurately you move. Divine alignment sharpens your discernment. You begin to sense when something is premature, even if it looks promising. You begin to recognize when something is a distraction, even if it appears productive. Not every open door is a divine door. Not every opportunity is an assignment. Alignment teaches you the difference between what is available and what is authorized. When you move without authorization, you forfeit the grace that sustains the mission. But when you move under divine authorization, provision accompanies purpose. Alignment also restructures your priorities. It teaches you to value obedience over applause. It trains you to prefer impact over visibility. Sometimes alignment will position you in places that are hidden before it places you in platforms that are public. Because God builds depth before he releases display. Precision requires preparation. Power requires purity. Advancement requires alignment. You cannot afford to move simply because others are moving. Comparison disrupts alignment. When you measure your progress against someone else's timeline, you step out of sync with your own divine schedule. Alignment anchors you in confidence. It reminds you that your journey is uniquely designed. What is delayed for you may be protection. What is accelerated for you may be preparation. Alignment stabilizes you so that you are not shaken by someone else's pace. When you are aligned, clarity replaces confusion. You no longer second guess every decision. You sense peace even when the assignment feels stretching. There is an internal witness that confirms you are in the right place at the right time. That peace does not eliminate challenge, but it eliminates doubt. You may face resistance, but you are not uncertain. You may encounter opposition, but you are not insecure. Alignment gives you spiritual confidence. Divine alignment is also about stewardship. It teaches you to manage your energy wisely. You stop scattering your focus across multiple directions. You become intentional with your time, your words, and your commitments. Alignment simplifies your life because it eliminates what is unnecessary. It prunes distractions. It trims excess. It refines your path so that every step has purpose. When heaven aligns you, it also aligns the right people around you. Strategic advancement is rarely a solo journey. Alignment attracts partnerships that complement your calling. It exposes relationships that drain your focus. You begin to discern who is assigned to your next season and who was only meant for your previous one. Alignment gives you the courage to release what no longer aligns with your future. Precision begins with internal order. If your thoughts are chaotic, your movement will be chaotic. If your emotions are unregulated, your decisions will be unstable. Divine alignment brings internal order. It organizes your priorities. It clarifies your vision. It strengthens your resolve. You stop reacting impulsively and start responding strategically. Before David confronted Goliath, there was alignment. Before Joshua crossed the Jordan, there was alignment. Before Esther approached the king, there was alignment. In every story of advancement, preparation preceded promotion. Strategy preceded success. Alignment preceded action. Because God is more concerned with who you are becoming than what you are building. Divine alignment requires daily recalibration. It is not a one-time decision. It is a continuous posture. Every morning you must choose alignment over assumption. You must choose consultation over impulsiveness. You must choose obedience over ego. Strategic advancement is sustained by consistent alignment. When you are aligned, you do not chase outcomes, you pursue obedience. And as you pursue obedience, outcomes follow. You are no longer driven by fear of missing out. You are anchored in confidence that what is for you cannot be stolen. Alignment removes anxiety from your advancement. It removes desperation from your decisions. It removes insecurity from your execution. To seek heaven's blueprint before taking a single step is to declare that God's wisdom surpasses your intellect. It is to acknowledge that strategy in the natural must be rooted in revelation from the supernatural. You plan, but you also pray. You prepare. But you also posture yourself to hear. You move, but only after you have aligned. Precision is not accidental. Power is not random. Advancement is not chaotic. It is the product of alignment. And when you commit to divine alignment before movement, you position yourself to move not just quickly, but correctly, not just boldly, but accurately, not just forcefully, but effectively. Strategic thinking over emotional reaction is the discipline of pausing before you proceed. It is the mastery of your impulses so that your decisions are not dictated by temporary feelings, but directed by eternal wisdom. Many people sabotage their own advancement because they move at the speed of their emotions. When they feel offended, they react. When they feel excited, they commit. When they feel afraid, they retreat. But strategic advancement requires stability. It requires a mind that is anchored, not agitated. Emotions are powerful, but they are not designed to lead. They are indicators, not commanders. When emotions sit on the throne of your decision making, chaos follows. You say what should have remained unspoken. You agree to what should have been declined. You abandon what should have been endured. Emotional reactions are often loud, immediate, and intense. Strategy is quiet, calculated, and intentional. One seeks relief, the other seeks results. When you choose strategic thinking, you refuse to let a moment define your movement. You understand that not every battle deserves your attention. Not every comment deserves your response. Not every opportunity deserves your agreement. Strategic thinkers evaluate long-term impact before making short-term decisions. They ask, how will this choice affect my future? Does this align with my assignment? Will this reaction advance me or delay me? There is power in restraint. The ability to hold your tongue when provoked is not weakness. It is warfare. The ability to remain composed under pressure is not passivity. It is precision. Emotional reaction may feel satisfying in the moment, but it often creates consequences that outlast the feeling. Strategic thinking protects your future from your present mood. When you are led by emotion, you are easily manipulated. Anyone who understands your triggers can control your response. But when you are led by strategy, you become unpredictable to your adversaries. They expect you to react, but you respond with wisdom. They expect you to lash out, but you move with calm authority. Strategic thinking denies your opposition the leverage of your instability. To think strategically is to detach from the immediacy of the moment and view your life from a higher perspective. It requires you to step back and assess rather than step forward impulsively. It means you gather information before drawing conclusions. You seek counsel before making commitments. You evaluate risks before taking leaps. Strategy does not eliminate faith. It refines it. Faith is not recklessness. Faith is confidence in God's instruction, not confidence in your feelings. Emotional reaction often stems from insecurity, fear, pride, or pain. When someone challenges you, pride wants to defend itself. When something feels uncertain, fear wants to withdraw. When you feel overlooked, insecurity wants to prove itself. But strategic thinking asks deeper questions. Why am I reacting this way? What is being triggered inside of me? Is this response rooted in wisdom or woundedness? Maturity is revealed in how you handle provocation. Anyone can remain calm when circumstances are favorable, but strategic thinkers maintain clarity when tension rises. They do not allow frustration to cloud discernment. They do not allow anger to distort judgment. They do not allow excitement to bypass evaluation. They understand that one impulsive decision can undo months of preparation. When you operate strategically, you recognize patterns, you study cycles, you observe outcomes. You learn from past mistakes rather than repeating them. Emotional reaction ignores history. Strategy studies it. Emotional reaction is reactive. Strategy is proactive. It anticipates obstacles before they appear. It prepares solutions before problems escalate. There is also a timing component to strategic thinking. Not everything that is true needs to be spoken immediately. Not every idea needs to be executed instantly. Sometimes wisdom says wait. Sometimes wisdom says watch. Sometimes wisdom says reposition quietly. Emotional reaction demands immediate expression. Strategy values appropriate timing. Strategic thinkers also understand the value of silence. Silence can be a strategy. When you refuse to engage in unnecessary conflict, you conserve energy for meaningful battles. When you choose not to respond to provocation, you deny drama the oxygen it needs to survive. Silence is not surrender, it is self-control. It is the awareness that your destiny is too significant to be derailed by petty distractions. Calculated wisdom requires discipline. It means you train your mind to process before responding. You slow down your breathing when tension rises. You measure your words before releasing them. You refuse to send that message in the heat of anger. You refuse to make that decision in the height of excitement. You create space between stimulus and response, and in that space, strategy is born. Strategic thinking also builds credibility. People trust those who are stable. They respect those who are consistent. They rely on those who are thoughtful. When you are known for emotional outbursts, your influence diminishes. But when you are known for measured responses, your authority increases. Stability attracts leadership. Impulsiveness repels it. You must also recognize that emotions fluctuate, but purpose remains constant. If you make decisions based on fluctuating feelings, your direction will constantly change. One day you are passionate. The next day you are discouraged. One day you are confident. The next day you are doubtful. Strategy anchors you in purpose regardless of how you feel. It reminds you that feelings are temporary, but assignments are permanent. To prioritize strategy over emotion is to declare that your future matters more than your feelings. It is to choose discipline over drama. It is to choose wisdom over impulse. It is to choose clarity over chaos. This does not mean you suppress your emotions. It means you submit them to discernment. You acknowledge what you feel, but you do not allow it to dictate your actions. Strategic advancement requires emotional intelligence. It requires awareness of your triggers and control over your responses. It requires you to separate facts from assumptions. It requires you to distinguish between perception and reality. Emotional reaction often fills gaps with imagination. Strategy seeks evidence and confirmation. When you master this discipline, you move differently. You are not easily shaken. You are not easily offended. You are not easily distracted. You evaluate before you engage. You assess before you act. You think before you speak. You respond rather than react. Calculated wisdom becomes your compass. It guides your steps, it guards your mouth, it governs your choices. And as you consistently choose strategic thinking over emotional reaction, you build a life marked by stability, influence, and intentional progress. A life where your decisions are not driven by temporary feelings, but directed by deliberate purpose. A life where your advancement is protected because your mind is disciplined and your spirit is steady and your actions are filtered through discernment rather than dictated by impulse. Discernment as your weapon means you refuse to navigate life blindly. You understand that not every opportunity is ordained, not every connection is covenant, and not every open door is divine. Discernment sharpens your perception so you can see beyond appearances and detect what is truly aligned with your purpose. It is the ability to sense what cannot always be seen, to perceive what is not always spoken, and to recognize what is not always obvious. In seasons of strategic advancement, discernment becomes essential. As you rise, options increase, invitations multiply, conversations expand, but growth without discernment creates vulnerability. The higher you go, the more precise your judgment must become. You cannot afford to partner with what drains you. You cannot afford to commit to what distracts you. You cannot afford to pursue what looks impressive but lacks divine endorsement. Discernment protects your destiny. It filters what enters your life and what exits it. It allows you to evaluate character, not just charisma. Many are impressed by presentation, but discernment studies patterns. It listens beneath the words. It observes consistency. It examines fruit. Because what glitters is not always gold, and what is loud is not always right. When discernment is active, you begin to sense shifts before they become visible. You detect subtle changes in atmosphere. You perceive hidden motives in conversations. You recognize when something feels off, even if you cannot immediately explain why. That internal signal is not to be ignored. It is a gift. It is a safeguard. It is spiritual intelligence alerting you to pay attention. Discernment is not suspicion. It is not paranoia. It is clarity. Suspicion assumes the worst without evidence. Discernment evaluates with wisdom and balance. It does not rush to conclusions, but it does not ignore warning signs. It listens, observes, and weighs carefully. It separates emotion from insight. It separates fear from revelation. As your weapon, discernment equips you to choose wisely. It helps you identify the right doors to walk through and the wrong ones to walk away from. Some doors open to test your maturity, not to reward your readiness. Some opportunities appear to elevate you but actually entangle you. Discernment asks, does this align with my assignment? Will this strengthen my focus or scatter my energy? Is this timely or premature? Partnerships require discernment. The people you align with will either accelerate your progress or complicate your journey. Discernment reveals who is assigned to your future and who is only present for a previous chapter. Not everyone who starts with you is meant to finish with you. And holding onto expired relationships can delay your advancement. Discernment also guides your speech. It tells you when to share and when to withhold. Not every vision should be announced. Not every plan should be broadcast. Some strategies require silence until the time is right. Premature exposure can invite unnecessary resistance. Discernment protects sacred plans from careless disclosure. In decision-making, discernment distinguishes between good and best. There are many good options, but only a few that are best for you. Without discernment, you may settle for what is available instead of waiting for what is aligned. You may choose convenience over calling. You may pursue comfort instead of purpose. Discernment refines your standards. Discernment grows through intimacy with God. The more you cultivate stillness, prayer, and reflection, the sharper your perception becomes. You begin to recognize patterns in how God speaks to you. You become sensitive to promptings, cautions, and confirmations. Discernment is strengthened when you value obedience over impulse. It also requires humility. Sometimes discernment will challenge your desires. It may tell you to walk away from something you want. It may caution you against something that appears beneficial. It may instruct you to wait when you feel ready. Humility allows you to trust divine insight over personal preference. Discernment protects your time. Time is one of your most valuable resources. Once spent, it cannot be recovered. Without discernment, you can invest years into what was never assigned to you. You can pour energy into projects that drain rather than develop you. But when discernment guides you, your investments become intentional. It also shields your emotions. Discernment helps you avoid unnecessary heartbreak. It reveals red flags before they become deep wounds. It warns you about environments that compromise your peace. It guards your heart from attachments that lead to disappointment. Discernment sharpens with experience. When you reflect on past decisions, you begin to recognize where you ignored warning signs. You identify moments when you felt hesitation but proceeded anyway. Learning from those experiences strengthens your future judgment. Growth requires awareness. Discernment is especially crucial in moments of pressure. When deadlines approach and urgency increases, it is tempting to decide quickly. But haste can blur clarity. Discernment slows you down just enough to evaluate thoroughly. It ensures that pressure does not override wisdom. Your environment also influences your discernment. Constant noise dulls perception. Distraction clouds clarity. When your mind is overstimulated, subtle insights are easily missed. Creating space for quiet reflection enhances your ability to perceive accurately. Silence strengthens sensitivity. Discernment gives you confidence. When you know you have evaluated carefully and sought divine guidance, you move forward with assurance. Even if challenges arise, you are not shaken because you are grounded in clarity. Confidence rooted in discernment is different from confidence rooted in ego. One is stable, the other is fragile. As your weapon, discernment helps you navigate complex situations. It equips you to respond appropriately to different personalities. It teaches you how to adjust without compromising your integrity. It enables you to see both opportunity and risk in the same scenario. Discernment also prevents overcommitment. You recognize your capacity and respect your limits. You understand that saying yes to everything diminishes your effectiveness. Strategic advancement requires focus. Discernment filters requests so your energy is preserved for priority assignments. When you cultivate discernment, you develop a heightened awareness of timing. You sense when to initiate and when to pause. You recognize when momentum is building and when resistance signals reconsideration. Timing can determine success as much as skill. Discernment aligns your actions with wisdom. It ensures that your ambition does not outrun your preparation. It guards against pride and protects against naivety. It strengthens your ability to evaluate motives, both yours and others. To wield discernment as a weapon is to remain vigilant. It is to stay spiritually alert and mentally engaged. It is to refuse autopilot living. It is to actively assess, evaluate, and choose with intention. When discernment governs your life, you walk with awareness. You speak with caution. You decide with clarity. You advance with protection. You recognize the right doors, the right timing, and the right partnerships not by accident, but by cultivated perception. And you move forward equipped not only with ambition and confidence, but with insight that guards your steps and sharpens your strategy and positions you to progress without unnecessary detours or preventable setbacks. Focused energy maximum impact is the discipline of concentration in a world addicted to distraction. It is the conscious decision to gather your strength, your attention, your time, and your resources into the areas that produce the greatest return. Many people are busy but not effective. They are active but not advancing. They are occupied but not impactful. Because activity without focus diffuses power. But when energy is concentrated, it multiplies force. Your energy is currency. Every conversation, every commitment, every thought, every emotional reaction costs you something. If you spend carelessly, you deplete quickly. Strategic advancement requires you to budget your energy the same way you would budget your finances. You cannot afford to invest heavily in low-return environments. You cannot afford to exhaust yourself on assignments that are not aligned with your purpose. Distraction is the silent thief of destiny. It rarely appears dangerous. It often looks harmless, even productive, but distraction pulls your attention away from what matters most. It divides your focus and weakens your execution. When your attention is scattered, your results are diluted. But when your attention is concentrated, your impact intensifies. Focused energy demands clarity of vision. If you do not know what you are aiming at, you will shoot at everything. If you do not define your priorities, other people will define them for you. Focus begins with decision. You must decide what deserves your attention in this season. Not everything that is good is necessary. Not everything that is available is essential. Maximum impact is not achieved by doing more. It is achieved by doing what matters most with excellence and consistency. When you narrow your focus, you amplify your effectiveness. Think of a magnifying glass. When sunlight is dispersed, it warms. But when sunlight is concentrated through a lens, it ignites. The same energy, when focused, produces fire. To eliminate distractions, you must first identify them. Some distractions are external: noise, unnecessary meetings, endless scrolling, unproductive conversations. Others are internal: self-doubt, comparison, overthinking, fear of missing out. Internal distractions can be more dangerous because they follow you wherever you go. Focus requires mental discipline. It requires you to guard your thoughts as intentionally as you guard your schedule. Focused energy also requires boundaries. You cannot say yes to everything. Every yes to something unnecessary is a no to something essential. Boundaries protect your focus. They preserve your strength. They ensure that your most productive hours are invested in high-impact tasks rather than trivial demands. When you operate with focus, you develop momentum. Momentum is created through consistent, intentional action in the same direction. Scattered effort resets momentum repeatedly. Every time you shift focus unnecessarily, you lose rhythm. But when you stay aligned with your priority, progress compounds. Maximum impact also demands depth. Shallow effort produces shallow results. When you commit deeply to mastering your craft, strengthening your skills, and refining your strategy, your results elevate. Focus allows you to go deeper instead of wider. It strengthens expertise instead of spreading mediocrity. Energy management is as important as time management. You may have hours available, but if your energy is depleted, productivity suffers. Focus requires you to operate during your peak hours. It requires you to prioritize rest so that your strength is sustainable. Burnout is often the result of misdirected energy rather than excessive responsibility. Focused individuals are not easily swayed by trends. They are not constantly pivoting because something new appears attractive. They understand that consistency builds credibility. They stay committed to their path long enough to see results. While others chase novelty, focused individuals cultivate mastery. Maximum impact also involves emotional discipline. Emotional drama drains energy. Unresolved conflict consumes attention. Lingering resentment distracts your mind. When you carry emotional clutter, it becomes difficult to concentrate. Clearing emotional baggage enhances clarity. Forgiveness, resolution, and intentional peace protect your focus. Technology can either enhance or erode focus. Without discipline, constant notifications fracture your concentration. Every interruption resets your mental flow. To produce maximum impact, you must create environments conducive to deep work. Silence unnecessary alerts. Schedule uninterrupted time. Protect your creative space. Focused energy requires courage. It takes courage to decline invitations. It takes courage to step away from conversations that do not serve your growth. It takes courage to commit to a narrow path while others explore multiple directions. But focus is not limitation, it is refinement. You must also evaluate your commitments regularly. Seasons change, priorities shift. What required intense focus last year may not require the same level of attention now. Strategic advancement includes periodic reassessment. Are your current investments producing measurable progress? Are you allocating energy proportionately to your goals? Maximum impact often results from small, consistent actions repeated daily. Grand gestures are impressive, but daily discipline builds momentum. Focus is less about intensity and more about consistency. It is showing up repeatedly for what matters most. Comparison is another distraction that erodes focus. When you measure your progress against others, you shift attention away from your own development. Focus anchors you in your assignment. It reminds you that your lane is unique. Your timeline is distinct. Your strategy is specific. Focused energy also enhances creativity. When your mind is not cluttered with competing demands, innovation flourishes. Clarity invites ideas. Simplicity strengthens strategy. Overcommitment suffocates creativity because your mental bandwidth is exhausted. There is power in completion. Many begin projects with enthusiasm, but abandon them when distractions arise. Focus carries assignments to completion. It resists the temptation to start something new before finishing what was started. Completion builds confidence. It reinforces discipline. Focused individuals develop resilience. Because they are clear about their priorities, obstacles do not easily derail them. They adjust without abandoning their objective. They refine without quitting. Focus provides direction during uncertainty. To operate with focused energy is to respect your potential. It is to recognize that you cannot give your best to everything, so you must choose wisely. It is to concentrate your efforts where they will create exponential results. It is to streamline your commitments so that your strength is not fragmented. When your energy is focused, your words carry weight. Your actions carry authority. Your presence carries influence. People recognize intentionality. They sense discipline. They observe consistency. Eliminate what drains you unnecessarily. Prioritize what strengthens you consistently. Align your schedule with your vision. Align your habits with your goals. Gather your energy and direct it deliberately. Because when focus sharpens your effort and discipline guards your attention and clarity guides your commitments and consistency fuels your execution, your impact increases beyond what scattered activity could ever produce. And your advancement accelerates not because you are doing more, but because you are doing what matters most with unwavering concentration and intentional force. Bold declarations that activate power are rooted in the understanding that words are not empty sounds. They are containers of intention, carriers of belief, and catalysts of action. Every word you release sets something in motion. Speech is creative. It frames perception, shapes atmosphere, and directs focus. When you speak boldly, you are not merely expressing desire. You are establishing alignment between your faith and your future. Many people speak casually about serious matters. They diminish their potential with careless language. They rehearse fear instead of reinforcing faith. They magnify problems instead of magnifying possibilities. But strategic advancement requires verbal discipline. It requires you to become intentional about what you declare over your life, your mind, your assignments, and your direction. Bold declarations are not arrogant statements. They are confident affirmations anchored in conviction. There is a difference between ego-driven speech and faith-driven speech. Ego seeks validation. Faith seeks alignment. When you declare with boldness, you are not trying to impress people. You are reinforcing truth within yourself. You are reminding your spirit of what is possible. You are strengthening your resolve with intentional language. Your subconscious listens to your words. If you repeatedly declare limitation, your mind will look for evidence to confirm it. If you consistently speak defeat, your energy will follow that narrative. But when you declare strength, clarity, discipline, and advancement, your internal framework adjusts accordingly. Words influence behavior. Behavior influences results. Activation begins with agreement. When you speak something repeatedly, you begin to believe it more deeply. Belief fuels action. Action creates movement. Movement generates momentum. Bold declarations interrupt negative patterns and replace them with intentional direction. They shift your focus from obstacles to outcomes. Silence has its place, but there are moments when silence sustains stagnation. When doubt whispers, bold declarations answer. When fear suggests retreat, bold declarations reinforce courage. When uncertainty clouds your perspective, bold declarations clarify your intention. Speaking boldly is an act of resistance against passivity. There is rhythm in repetition. When you consistently declare your goals, your discipline, your resilience, and your advancement, those declarations begin to influence your daily decisions. You hesitate less. You second guess less. You move with greater assurance because your words have reinforced your identity. You are not improvising confidence. You are cultivating it. Bold declarations must be specific. Vague statements lack force. Precision strengthens power. Instead of saying, I hope things improve, declare, I am aligning my actions with measurable progress. Instead of saying, I might try, declare, I am committed to consistent execution. Specific language sharpens intention. It reduces ambiguity. Declarations also shape your emotional climate. When you speak stability, you create calm. When you speak clarity, confusion loses strength. When you speak resilience, discouragement weakens. Words influence how you interpret events. The same situation can feel overwhelming or manageable depending on the narrative you attach to it. Consistency is crucial. One bold statement cannot override months of negative self-talk. Transformation requires repetition. Daily reinforcement strengthens belief. Each declaration becomes a building block in a new internal structure. Over time, that structure becomes your default mindset. Bold declarations require alignment with action. Speaking without corresponding behavior creates frustration. Words activate power when they are supported by discipline. If you declare focus, protect your schedule. If you declare growth, pursue learning. If you declare confidence, practice preparation. Declarations initiate, actions sustain. There is also power in declaring boundaries. Saying no clearly and confidently is a declaration of priority. Refusing to tolerate distractions is a declaration of focus. Communicating expectations is a declaration of standards. Boldness is not always loud. Sometimes it is firm and unwavering. Your environment responds to your language. When you consistently speak vision, others begin to perceive your seriousness. When you articulate goals with clarity, collaboration becomes easier. People align with clarity more readily than confusion. Bold declarations create alignment externally as well as internally. Negative declarations can also activate power, but in destructive ways. Statements like, "I can't handle this," or "nothing ever works for me," reinforce limitation. They narrow your perception. They weaken your initiative. Strategic advancement demands that you monitor and adjust your language intentionally. Self-talk matters profoundly. The conversations you have internally shape your external behavior. If your internal dialogue is harsh and critical, your confidence erodes. If it is empowering and disciplined, your resilience strengthens. Bold declarations begin privately before they are expressed publicly. Fear often resists boldness. It suggests caution, withdrawal, and hesitation. But bold declarations do not ignore risk. They acknowledge it without surrendering to it. They state intention despite uncertainty. They affirm commitment despite challenge. They reinforce vision despite temporary setbacks. There is also communal power in shared declarations. When a group articulates a unified vision, collective energy intensifies. Agreement multiplies momentum. Clear communication strengthens unity. Bold declarations spoken together establish shared direction. Timing enhances impact. Declaring intention at the start of a day, a project, or a season sets tone. It frames expectations. It clarifies objectives. It activates focus from the outset. Beginning with boldness reduces hesitation. Declarations must be rooted in integrity. Speaking what you do not intend to pursue weakens credibility. Integrity ensures that your words carry weight. When people know you honor your declarations, your influence expands. Bold language also strengthens courage during adversity. When obstacles arise, revisiting your declarations reminds you of your commitment. It anchors you in purpose. It reinforces perseverance. Words spoken in clarity sustain you in confusion. As you practice this discipline, your vocabulary evolves. You replace hesitant language with decisive phrases. You eliminate self-deprecating humor that undermines confidence. You refine your speech to reflect intention and strength. Bold declarations are not about denying reality. They are about directing response. They acknowledge facts but refuse to be defined by them. They declare movement despite obstacles. They affirm growth despite resistance. When you align your words with your goals and your speech with your strategy and your declarations with your discipline, something shifts internally. Confidence stabilizes. Focus intensifies, initiative increases, your voice becomes an instrument of activation, your language becomes a framework for progress. Your declarations become catalysts for disciplined behavior. Speak intentionally, speak clearly, speak consistently. Speak with conviction rooted in preparation and integrity and disciplined action, and allow your words to reinforce your direction and energize your effort and strengthen your mindset and establish an atmosphere where advancement is not merely desired, but deliberately activated through intentional speech and aligned execution. Forward momentum without fear is the discipline of continuing to move even when uncertainty attempts to immobilize you. Fear is a natural response to the unknown, but it was never designed to be a compass. It signals risk, but it should not dictate direction. Strategic advancement requires courage that is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. You acknowledge the presence of uncertainty without surrendering your progress to it. Momentum is fragile. It builds through consistent effort, disciplined focus, and intentional movement. But fear interrupts rhythm. It whispers worst-case scenarios. It magnifies potential failure. It exaggerates obstacles. If entertained long enough, it slows your steps, and if obeyed repeatedly, it stops them entirely. To maintain forward momentum, you must confront fear at its earliest stages before it grows roots. Fear often disguises itself as logic. It presents cautious arguments that sound reasonable. It asks, what if this doesn't work? What if you are not ready? What if you fail publicly? These questions are not inherently harmful, but when they dominate your thinking, They paralyze initiative. Strategic thinking evaluates risk, fear amplifies it. Wisdom assesses obstacles, fear obsesses over them. Moving without fear does not mean ignoring preparation. Preparation builds confidence. Confidence reduces anxiety. When you are disciplined in your preparation, fear loses leverage. Doubt thrives in neglect. When you procrastinate, avoid planning, or delay learning, fear finds fertile ground. But when you prepare diligently, your confidence strengthens because you trust your readiness. Forward momentum requires commitment. Once you decide on a direction, hesitation must not become habitual. Indecision drains energy. Constant reconsideration disrupts progress. Fear feeds indecision by magnifying every potential flaw. Courage narrows focus to the next necessary step rather than the entire uncertain journey. Fear is often rooted in past experiences. Previous disappointments, failures, or criticisms create internal narratives. Those narratives replay during new opportunities. Remember what happened last time. Don't risk embarrassment again. But growth demands that you separate past outcomes from present possibilities. Each opportunity deserves evaluation based on current preparation, not historical pain. Confidence grows through action. Waiting to feel fearless before moving will keep you stagnant. Fear diminishes when confronted. Each step forward weakens its intensity. Each small success strengthens resolve. Momentum itself becomes a source of courage because progress reinforces belief. Fear also thrives in isolation. When you internalize every concern without seeking perspective, anxiety expands unchecked. Strategic advancement includes seeking counsel, gathering insight, and learning from experience. Wise input clarifies exaggerated worries. It reframes challenges into manageable tasks. Your mindset determines how you interpret risk. Fear sees risk as threat. Courage sees risk as possibility. Fear fixates on what could go wrong. Courage considers what could go right. Both acknowledge uncertainty, but their focus differs. Focus determines emotional intensity. Forward momentum demands resilience. Challenges are inevitable. Setbacks will occur. Fear interprets setbacks as confirmation of inadequacy. Resilience interprets them as opportunities for adjustment. When you anticipate obstacles as part of growth rather than proof of failure, fear loses its authority. There is also a physical component to fear. Stress responses affect breathing, posture, and clarity. Managing these responses strengthens composure. Deep breathing, intentional posture, and calm reflection reduce the physiological intensity of fear. Composure enhances decision-making. Courage does not eliminate caution. It balances it. You can evaluate risk thoughtfully without being immobilized. You can plan thoroughly without postponing indefinitely. You can adjust strategically without abandoning entirely. Movement with wisdom is not reckless, it is disciplined. Fear often exaggerates consequences. It paints scenarios in extreme colors. It convinces you that one mistake defines your identity. But progress is rarely linear. Missteps are part of mastery. Viewing errors as data rather than disasters reduces fear's intensity. Momentum is maintained through consistency. Even small steps sustain progress. Large leaps are impressive, but daily discipline builds stability. Fear prefers dramatic decisions, either total retreat or dramatic risk. Courage prefers steady advancement. Language influences courage. When you speak about challenges as threats, anxiety increases. When you speak about them as opportunities to grow, determination rises. Internal dialogue shapes emotional response. Replace "I can't handle this" with "I will navigate this strategically." Replace "this is overwhelming" with "this requires focus." Fear also thrives on comparison. Observing others' success can trigger insecurity. Measuring your journey against someone else's timeline intensifies doubt. Forward momentum requires focusing on your own path. Your progress is measured against your preparation, not someone else's pace. Visualization strengthens courage. Seeing yourself successfully navigating challenges builds mental familiarity. The mind rehearses possibility before reality unfolds. When scenarios feel familiar, fear decreases. Accountability sustains momentum. Sharing goals with trusted individuals increases commitment. External accountability reduces the temptation to retreat when fear surfaces. Support reinforces stability. You must also define what failure truly means. If failure means learning, adjusting, and trying again, it loses its power to intimidate. If failure means permanent identity, fear dominates. Reframing failure as feedback transforms perspective. Momentum without fear also requires purpose. When your objective is meaningful, fear becomes secondary. Purpose generates perseverance. It fuels determination beyond discomfort. There will be moments when fear attempts to resurface despite preparation and discipline. In those moments, return to clarity, revisit your goals, review your progress. Reflect on past victories. Evidence of resilience weakens doubt. Courage compounds. Each time you act despite uncertainty, your tolerance for risk increases. Confidence becomes habitual. Fear becomes manageable rather than overwhelming. Forward movement does not require complete certainty. It requires sufficient clarity to take the next step. You do not need to see the entire path to begin walking. Progress reveals direction gradually. Discipline strengthens bravery. Consistent routines reduce unpredictability. Structured habits anchor stability. When your foundation is strong, fear has less room to destabilize. Choose to act even when your voice trembles. Choose to move even when outcomes are not guaranteed. Choose to advance because stagnation guarantees nothing changes. As you cultivate forward momentum, you train your mind to respond differently to uncertainty. You interpret ambiguity as space for growth. You perceive challenge as invitation to expand capacity. Fear will knock, but it does not have to enter. Doubt will whisper, but it does not have to decide. Obstacles will appear, but they do not have to define. Keep stepping, keep adjusting, keep learning, keep refining. Let courage become practice rather than exception. Let movement become habit rather than hesitation. Because when you continue to advance with disciplined preparation and intentional mindset and steady resilience and unwavering commitment to growth, fear loses its control over your direction and becomes merely a background noise while your focus remains anchored in progress and your confidence is strengthened by consistent forward action and your momentum carries you beyond hesitation into purposeful advancement. Beloved, this is a Thursday, March 5th, 2026, and today we step into a divine moment of acceleration and undeniable grace. This is not just another day on the calendar. This is a prophetic intersection where heaven and earth collide in your favor. Today, we release en as etem mais purar over your life. For you step op PABL favor. Doors open by tutus to GLE. Get ready because what has resisted you will no longer have the authority to delay you. There are seasons when you push, and then there are seasons when God pulls you forward by his sovereign hand. This is not a season of strain. This is a season of supernatural ease. The Spirit of the Lord is dismantling barriers you didn't even know were standing against you. Invisible opposition is being overturned. Systems are shifting. Policies are bending. Conversations are turning in your favor. What once required sweat will now respond to strategy anointed by grace. Favor is not luck. Favor is a divine endorsement. It is heaven's signature on your name. When favor surrounds you like a shield, rejection loses its voice. When favor speaks, rooms you were disqualified from suddenly make space for you. When favor moves, resources locate you, helpers remember you, and decision makers feel compelled to say yes. Today, we are not begging for opportunities. We are commanding alignment with what has already been ordained. Some of you have been striving, overextending, and exhausting yourselves trying to make something happen. But hear me prophetically, God is removing the burden of self-effort and replacing it with the power of divine orchestration. Doors will open without manipulation. Breakthroughs will manifest without burnout. Advancement will come without compromise. You will not have to fight for what heaven has already assigned to you. This atomic prayer is a decree. It is a legislative act in the realm of the Spirit. We are establishing that no gate will remain closed if it has your name written on it. No opportunity will bypass you. No blessing will be rerouted. What is yours by covenant cannot be withheld by circumstance. The same God who makes rivers in deserts is making pathways where there were walls. So posture your heart, lift your expectation. Today, we activate unstoppable favor. Today, resistance breaks. Today, doors open without struggle. And as we pray, we will not whisper, we will legislate, we will not hope, we will declare. Because when favor is released, momentum follows. And when momentum follows, destiny accelerates. Favor is a divine advantage. It is the invisible hand of God resting upon your life, distinguishing you in rooms where your RA summit cannot explain your relevance and your history cannot justify your elevation. It is the supernatural endorsement that shifts outcomes without visible effort. When favor surrounds you, you are no longer operating by human metrics alone. You are functioning under a higher authorization. Systems may be designed one way, but favor rewrites the script. Protocol may say wait, but favor says welcome. Qualifications may say insufficient, but favor says proved. Favor is not a reward for perfection. It is a response to alignment. When your heart aligns with divine purpose, heaven responds with acceleration. Alignment is about positioning your thoughts, your words, your habits, and your obedience to reflect the will of God. When alignment is present, favor flows naturally. Just as gravity responds to structure, Favor responds to spiritual order. It is not about striving harder. It is about standing rightly. When you stand in covenant consciousness, knowing who you are and whose you are, favor begins to operate as a spiritual advantage that precedes you into every environment. There are people who have worked twice as hard yet advanced half as far because effort without favor can exhaust the body and drain the spirit. But when favor rests on you, what took others years can happen in moments. It compresses timelines, it collapses delays, it accelerates processes that would normally require layers of approval. Favor does not ignore preparation, but it amplifies it. It takes what you have cultivated in private and announces it publicly. It causes your name to surface in conversations you were never present for. It places your profile before decision makers who feel compelled to consider you. Favor is a divine advantage because it neutralizes opposition before you even recognize it. There are battles you never had to fight because favor fought them for you. There are rejections that never reached your ears because favor intercepted them. There are setbacks that never manifested because favor redirected them. You may have thought certain opportunities simply did not materialize, but in reality, favor was shielding you from misalignment. It was preventing you from stepping into spaces that would have drained your oil and distracted your focus. When favor is active, resistance loses its authority. Doors that once seemed immovable begin to shift. Hearts that were hardened begin to soften. Policies that seemed rigid begin to bend. Favor has a persuasive power that logic cannot fully explain. It influences atmospheres. It shifts narratives. It creates an aura of credibility and trust around you that cannot be manufactured. You cannot manipulate favor. You can only align with it. It is not a strategy to master, but a grace to steward. To steward favor means to remain humble under elevation. Favor is powerful, but pride can contaminate its flow. When you recognize that your advancement is divinely orchestrated, you walk with gratitude instead of arrogance. Gratitude sustains favor. Honor protects favor. Integrity preserves favor. The same grace that opens doors expects character to keep them open. Favor may introduce you, but character maintains your seat at the table. Divine advantage does not mean the absence of challenges. It means challenges cannot overpower your assignment. There may still be obstacles, but they will not define the outcome. Favor ensures that even when you encounter resistance, it will serve as a platform for greater revelation. What was meant to block you will instead broadcast you. What was designed to intimidate you will ultimately validate you. Favor transforms opposition into opportunity. Alignment activates favor in practical ways. When your decisions reflect wisdom, when your words reflect faith, when your actions reflect discipline, you create an atmosphere conducive to divine endorsement. Favor responds to faith-filled declarations. It responds to obedience in unseen places. It responds to consistency when no one is applauding. Every act of integrity, every disciplined choice, every moment of restraint builds a foundation that favor can confidently elevate. There is a difference between networking and divine connection. Networking relies on human effort. Divine connection is orchestrated by favor. When favor is at work, the right people recognize you without introduction. They discern value without persuasion. They sense authenticity without performance. These connections are not accidental, they are appointed. They align with your purpose and amplify your impact. Favor does not merely give you access, it gives you access to the right environments at the right time. Favor also changes how you perceive yourself. When you understand that you carry divine advantage, insecurity begins to dissolve. You no longer compare your timeline to others. You no longer shrink in rooms where you once felt intimidated. You walk with quiet confidence, not because of ego, but because of awareness. Awareness that heaven has endorsed you. Awareness that your steps are ordered. Awareness that your presence carries purpose. This divine advantage is not limited to one area of life. It extends to your relationships, your career, your health, your creativity, your influence. Favor can restore what seemed fractured. It can revive what appeared stagnant. It can open streams of provision in unexpected places. It can cause ideas to flourish and strategies to succeed. Favor makes the difference between striving and thriving. It transforms survival into significance. When you wake each day conscious of favor, you approach opportunities differently. You speak differently. You expect differently. Expectation creates capacity. Capacity invites manifestation. Favor thrives where faith anticipates. If you expect doors to close, you may hesitate at the threshold. But when you expect favor, you step forward with boldness. You apply, you propose, you initiate, you present. You trust that if the door belongs to you, it will respond. Favor is not random. It is relational. It flows from intimacy with God. The deeper your relationship, the clearer your alignment. The clearer your alignment, the stronger the manifestation of favor. It is cultivated in prayer, strengthened in obedience, and sustained in gratitude. It is activated when you decree truth over your life and refuse to partner with doubt. Divine advantage means that even when circumstances appear unfavorable, the final verdict is still in your favor. Situations may fluctuate, but favor remains constant. It is a covering. It is a shield. It is a distinguishing mark that sets you apart without your striving for attention. It positions you for impact beyond your natural capacity and influence beyond your visible reach. Struggle is not your portion this season. There are moments in life when we equate hardship with holiness and exhaustion with effectiveness. But there comes a divine shift where God recalibrates your understanding of progress. Not every breakthrough is preceded by burnout. Not every elevation requires endless strain. There are seasons designed for toil, and there are seasons designed for overflow. This is a grace-driven moment where doors respond to obedience rather than exhaustion, where advancement is tied to alignment instead of anxiety. For too long, many have worn struggle as a badge of honor, believing that the harder it feels, the more spiritual it must be. Yet grace was never meant to be replaced by grind. When you are aligned with divine timing, what once demanded excessive effort begins to respond to focused obedience. It is not about doing more, it is about doing what is assigned. When you operate outside of assignment, you drain energy unnecessarily. When you operate within assignment, grace supplies the strength required. Grace is not the absence of responsibility. It is the empowerment to fulfill responsibility without depletion. This season is marked by strategic movement rather than frantic motion. Frantic motion is fueled by fear. The fear of missing out, the fear of falling behind, the fear of not being enough. Strategic movement is fueled by trust. Trust that what is meant for you will not bypass you. Trust that obedience activates provision. Trust that when you take the right step, heaven supports it. Obedience carries a supernatural multiplier effect. A single act of alignment can accomplish what years of striving could not produce. Grace-driven advancement means that you no longer push against doors that are not assigned to open. You no longer attempt to convince environments that were never designed to sustain you. Instead, you discern where your oil flows freely. When you find that space, progress becomes natural, creativity expands, favor increases, momentum builds. There is a rhythm to grace, and when you enter that rhythm, struggle begins to lose its grip. Struggle often stems from misalignment. It can be the result of chasing what looks impressive rather than what is purposeful. When purpose is unclear, effort becomes scattered. But when purpose is defined, energy becomes concentrated. Concentrated energy produces measurable impact without unnecessary exhaustion. In this season, clarity replaces confusion. Focus replaces distraction. Obedience replaces overexertion. Obedience is powerful because it carries divine backing. When you obey, you are not acting alone. You are partnering with heaven's agenda. That partnership shifts the burden. The weight of making everything happen no longer rests solely on your shoulders. Instead, you move with the confidence that God is orchestrating outcomes behind the scenes. Doors open because obedience positioned you correctly, not because you forced them. There is a difference between laboring under pressure and laboring under promise. Pressure drains. Promise energizes. When you are fueled by promise, you work from a place of assurance rather than desperation. You are not striving to prove your worth. You are simply expressing it. That shift changes everything. Your tone changes, your posture changes, your decisions change. You begin to reject opportunities that demand compromise because you understand that grace will provide alternatives. In a grace-driven season, rest becomes strategic. Rest is not laziness, it is trust in action. It is the declaration that you believe God is working even when you are not visibly striving. Rest recalibrates your spirit. It sharpens your discernment. It restores your creativity. When you are rested, you make better decisions. When you are rested, you hear more clearly. When you are rested, you recognize the doors that are truly aligned. Exhaustion clouds judgment. It can cause you to accept less than you deserve simply because you are tired of waiting. But when you operate under grace, patience becomes a strength rather than a struggle. You understand that delay does not mean denial. You recognize that preparation is often happening beneath the surface. Grace sustains you in the waiting without draining your hope. This season calls for intentional obedience. Obedience in small things. Obedience in unseen places. Obedience when it is inconvenient. These acts may appear insignificant, but they create a pathway for divine response. When you honor instructions, you position yourself for increase. When you follow through consistently, you build trust with heaven. Trust releases responsibility, and responsibility releases reward. There are cycles of unnecessary struggle that end when you decide to align rather than strive. You stop competing with timelines that were never assigned to you. You stop measuring progress by comparison. You stop exhausting yourself trying to replicate someone else's journey. Instead, you embrace your unique pace. You honor your unique process. You trust your unique calling. Grace does not eliminate effort. It refines it. It removes waste. It removes distraction. It removes overcommitment. It teaches you to say no without guilt and yes without hesitation. It empowers you to delegate what is not yours to carry and embrace what is yours to steward. When you operate in refined effort, productivity increases while stress decreases. Doors responding to obedience means that access is tied to integrity. When your character aligns with your calling, environments recognize it. When your actions reflect your values, opportunities expand. Integrity is magnetic. It attracts trust. It attracts partnership. It attracts longevity. Struggle may gain attention quickly, but grace sustains influence over time. You are entering a flow where things come together with surprising ease. Conversations align, resources appear, ideas connect. It feels different because it is different. You are no longer forcing outcomes. You are following instruction. You are no longer reacting to pressure. You are responding to purpose. This shift transforms your experience from constant striving to steady advancement. Grace-driven moments are marked by peace. Even in the midst of growth, there is calm assurance. Even in expansion, there is stability. You are productive without panic. You are ambitious without anxiety. You are diligent without depletion. This balance reflects divine design. Struggle is not your inheritance. Grace is. Alignment is. Strategic obedience is. When you internalize this truth, you begin to move differently. You release what drains you. You embrace what fuels you. You discern where to invest your time and where to withdraw your energy. You recognize that every yes carries weight and every no creates space. As you continue to walk in obedience, you will notice that what once felt heavy begins to feel manageable. What once required excessive effort begins to respond to simple faithfulness. What once seemed distant begins to move closer. The shift is subtle but powerful. It is the evidence of grace at work, the confirmation that you are no longer operating from a place of relentless striving, but from a position of divine support and intentional alignment. Heaven is repositioning you. Even when it feels like you are standing still, there are movements happening beyond your visibility. Shifts are taking place in conversations you have not heard, in rooms you have not entered, in decisions that have not yet been announced. Repositioning is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is subtle, strategic, and silent. It is the unseen hand of God adjusting coordinates, aligning timing, and arranging details so that when the moment arrives, everything fits with precision. Repositioning often begins with discomfort. What once felt familiar starts to feel restrictive. Environments that used to energize you begin to feel limiting. Relationships that were once aligned may no longer resonate with your direction. This discomfort is not punishment, it is preparation. It is the signal that growth requires movement. When heaven repositions you, it stretches your capacity before it expands your territory. There are times when you think you are being delayed, but you are actually being redirected. A closed door is not always rejection. It can be divine rerouting. A pause is not always denial. It can be strategic timing. Repositioning protects you from premature exposure. It ensures that when you step into the next level, you are not only ready to enter, but ready to sustain. Elevation without preparation leads to instability, but repositioning builds foundation before visibility. Heaven repositions through instruction, a prompting to learn something new, an urge to refine a skill, a conviction to adjust your habits. These small directives carry significant impact. When you respond to them, you cooperate with the repositioning process. Obedience in private becomes leverage in public. What you cultivate in obscurity becomes your strength and opportunity. Sometimes repositioning involves separation. You may outgrow certain mindsets, conversations, or cycles. This separation can feel isolating, but it is intentional. You cannot carry every attachment into your next assignment. Some connections are seasonal, designed for a specific chapter. When the chapter changes, so must the environment. Repositioning clears space for new alignments, new partnerships, new opportunities that match your expanded capacity. Conversations are being orchestrated in your favor. Your name is being mentioned in rooms where decisions are being made. Opportunities are being discussed before they are announced. You may not see it yet, but alignment is unfolding. Divine repositioning ensures that when the opportunity surfaces, it intersects with your readiness. Timing is critical. Being too early can be as challenging as being too late. Heaven calibrates timing with precision. Repositioning also reshapes perception. How you see yourself must evolve before how others see you can shift. If you continue to identify with your past limitations, you will resist your future expansion. Heaven works from the inside out. It upgrades your mindset before it upgrades your environment. It transforms your confidence before it transforms your circumstances. Internal repositioning precedes external manifestation. There are strategic moves happening that you did not initiate. A leader stepping down, a policy changing, a market shifting. These changes may seem unrelated to you, but they create openings. Repositioning involves aligning you with emerging spaces. What once seemed inaccessible becomes available. What once seemed competitive becomes collaborative. The landscape adjusts to accommodate your assignment. Divine repositioning requires trust. When you cannot see the full picture, trust anchors you. When you do not understand the sequence, trust stabilizes you. Trust allows you to move when instructed and wait when directed. It prevents panic when transitions occur. It keeps you steady when familiar structures shift. Repositioning is not about status, it is about strategy. It is not about elevation for applause, it is about placement for impact. Heaven positions you where your gifts solve problems, where your voice adds clarity, where your presence shifts atmosphere. The right placement multiplies influence without unnecessary strain. When you are correctly positioned, effort produces greater return. Sometimes heaven repositions you by exposing you to new information, a book that changes your perspective, a conversation that sparks insight, an experience that expands your vision. These exposures are not random. They are invitations to think differently. When your thinking expands, your possibilities expand. Repositioning begins in the realm of ideas before it manifests in the realm of opportunity. You may notice that certain desires intensify. New ambitions surface. Fresh creativity emerges. This is part of the repositioning process. Heaven awakens dormant potential before unveiling new platforms. It stirs hunger for growth before releasing increase. That stirring is not restlessness, it is preparation. It is the signal that your current capacity is being stretched to accommodate what is coming. Repositioning can also involve refinement. Habits are corrected. Character is sharpened. Discipline is strengthened. These adjustments may feel challenging, but they are protective. Greater visibility requires greater integrity. Broader influence requires deeper maturity. Heaven refines you so that when expansion occurs, you are equipped to handle its demands. There may be moments when you feel unseen during repositioning. Progress may not be publicly recognized. Growth may not be immediately celebrated. But obscurity is not absence. It is incubation. Seeds develop beneath the soil before they break through the surface. Repositioning develops depth before it reveals height. As heaven repositions you, your network begins to reflect your next level. New conversations align with your vision. Mentors appear who challenge your thinking. Peers emerge who share your momentum. These connections are strategic. They reinforce your direction. They sharpen your clarity. They strengthen your resilience. Repositioning requires letting go of narratives that no longer serve you, stories of limitation, labels of inadequacy, memories of failure. These narratives anchor you to outdated identity. Heaven invites you to adopt a renewed self-concept aligned with purpose. When your identity shifts, your trajectory shifts. You may not have orchestrated these changes, but you are invited to cooperate with them. Stay attentive, stay responsive, stay willing. The shifts may be gradual, but they are intentional. Every adjustment aligns you more precisely with your assignment. Every transition moves you closer to the space where your gifts flourish and your influence expands. Heaven is not randomly moving pieces, it is strategically aligning them. The repositioning you are experiencing is purposeful. It is calculated, it is timely. It is preparing you for rooms that require your wisdom, platforms that require your voice, opportunities that require your readiness, ensuring that when the moment of manifestation arrives, you are not scrambling to adapt, but confidently stepping into a placement that has already been divinely arranged. Closed doors are being overruled. What once stood firm against you is losing its authority to deny you access. There are moments in life when rejection feels final, when silence feels permanent, when delay feels decisive. But there is a higher verdict that supersedes every earthly decision. What was marked denied in one season can be stamped approved in another when divine timing intervenes. An overruled door is not just reopened, It is reopened with greater clarity, greater alignment, and greater purpose. Not every closed door was meant to remain closed. Some were temporary pauses designed to prepare you. Others were protective barriers shielding you from premature exposure. But when the season shifts, the same door that resisted you can respond differently. The difference is not always in the door, it is in your development. Growth changes how you knock. Maturity changes what you request. Confidence changes how you stand at the threshold. Overruled doors signal that the authority behind your life is greater than the authority that once blocked you. Decisions made by people are subject to revision when divine purpose requires it. Policies can change. Leadership can shift. Opinions can evolve. The same environment that once overlooked you can later pursue you. What felt like dismissal can transform into recognition. What felt like exclusion can become invitation. There are approvals being reconsidered, conversations being revisited, applications being reevaluated. Timing has a powerful influence on outcomes. An idea presented too early may be rejected, but the same idea presented at the right moment can be embraced. When your readiness aligns with opportunity, resistance weakens. Preparedness creates persuasion. Excellence demands attention. Delay does not mean disqualified. A closed door does not erase your calling. It does not invalidate your potential. It does not diminish your worth. Sometimes it simply means that alignment was incomplete. When alignment is complete, doors respond. When character matches capacity, environments recognize it. When confidence replaces hesitation, presence carries greater authority. Overruled doors also reflect perseverance. You continued developing even when access was denied. You refined your skills even when recognition was absent. You strengthened your character even when affirmation was scarce. That quiet consistency builds credibility. When the door reopens, you step in with depth, not desperation. You enter with preparation, not panic. There are systems that once seemed rigid now becoming flexible. Circumstances that once seemed immovable now showing signs of change. What appeared fixed is revealing cracks. Resistance is losing stability. Momentum is shifting in your direction. This is not coincidence, it is convergence. Your growth is meeting opportunity at the right intersection. An overruled door carries a different energy than an ordinary opportunity. It comes with confirmation. It reassures you that persistence was not wasted. It affirms that preparation mattered. It demonstrates that rejection was not the final narrative. When the door opens again, you walk through it with clarity. You recognize its value. You steward it with gratitude. Sometimes doors close because you were underestimating yourself. You approached with uncertainty. You minimized your voice. You hesitated to claim your space. Growth transforms posture. When you return with confidence grounded in identity, the atmosphere responds differently. Authority recognizes authority. Certainty commands attention. Overruled doors can also expose the limitations of human perception. People assess based on visible metrics, but purpose often operates beyond visibility. You may have been judged by incomplete information, evaluated by narrow standards, measured by temporary performance. But purpose cannot be permanently confined by limited perspective. When timing aligns, the same evaluators may see what they previously overlooked. There is a refinement process that precedes many reopenings. Skills are sharpened, vision is clarified, strategy is improved, emotional intelligence is strengthened. These refinements prepare you to handle what once felt overwhelming. The door may have been closed not because you were incapable, but because you were incomplete. Completion creates confidence. As doors are overruled, your mindset must shift from resentment to readiness. Carrying bitterness into a reopened opportunity compromises its potential. Forgiveness clears the path for progress. Gratitude sustains momentum. When you release the frustration of the past, you create capacity for the favor of the present. Overruled doors remind you that no single decision defines your destiny. A no from one source does not negate a yes from another. One closed chapter does not cancel the entire narrative. Life is dynamic. Circumstances evolve. Authority shifts. Timing matures. What seemed settled can be unsettled. What seemed final can be revised. There are spaces you once admired from a distance that are now within reach. The difference is development. You have grown into the capacity required. Your perspective has expanded. Your resilience has strengthened. What once intimidated you now feels aligned. When the door opens, it aligns with who you have become, not who you were. Overruled doors also bring responsibility. Access requires stewardship. Opportunity requires discipline. Visibility requires integrity. When you step through a reopened door, you carry the lessons learned during the waiting. You value preparation. You respect timing. You guard your character. These lessons ensure longevity. Momentum builds when resistance weakens. One reopened door can lead to another. Confidence increases with each step. Faith deepens with each confirmation. You begin to expect movement instead of stagnation. You approach opportunities with anticipation rather than apprehension. The doors that are overruled are not random. They are aligned. They connect to your assignment. They amplify your strengths. They expand your influence. They position you where your contribution matters. You are not forcing entry. You are responding to invitation. You are not demanding space. You are accepting alignment. As the shift unfolds, remain attentive. Respond with excellence, walk with humility, speak with clarity. The reopening of doors is evidence that timing has matured, preparation has met opportunity, and resistance has lost its authority to hold back what is aligned with your purpose and ready to advance into spaces that once seemed unreachable. You will not beg for what is assigned to you. What carries your name in the realm of purpose does not require desperation to obtain. Assignment is not secured through pleading. It is accessed through alignment. When something is divinely designated for your life, it responds to your presence, your preparation, and your positioning. Begging implies uncertainty about worth, but assignment is rooted in identity. When you understand who you are, you stop negotiating for spaces that were already prepared for you. Begging often stems from insecurity, from the fear that if you do not grasp tightly, the opportunity will slip away. But what is truly assigned cannot be stolen by competition or delayed by opinion. It may require patience, it may require growth, it may require resilience. But it will not require you to compromise your dignity. You were not designed to diminish yourself to gain access. You were designed to develop yourself so that when access appears, you are ready to steward it. There is a difference between pursuit and pleading. Pursuit is intentional, strategic, and confident. Pleading is anxious, reactive, and fearful. When you pursue what aligns with your purpose, you move with clarity. You present your skills with confidence. You communicate your value with authenticity. You are willing to walk away from environments that demand you shrink to fit their limitations. Confidence rooted in identity transforms how you approach opportunity. When something is assigned to you, it carries an internal confirmation. There is a resonance within your spirit that affirms alignment. You do not feel the need to convince others of your worth because you have already embraced it yourself. That self-awareness shifts your energy. It influences your tone. It strengthens your posture. People sense certainty. They respond differently to conviction than to desperation. Assignment also requires preparation. You cannot demand access to what you have not prepared to. Managed growth eliminates the need for begging because competence commands respect. When you refine your skills, strengthen your character, and expand your knowledge, you increase your value. Value attracts recognition. Recognition opens doors. Doors aligned with your purpose respond to readiness. There may have been seasons when you felt overlooked, when you believed you had to overextend yourself just to be noticed. In those moments, you may have lowered your standards or overcommitted your energy. But growth teaches boundaries. Boundaries protect dignity. When you understand that your assignment is secure, you no longer feel pressured to accept every opportunity. You discern which invitations align and which are distractions. You will not beg for relationships that do not honor your presence. Connection is powerful, but it must be mutual. When a relationship is assigned, it is reciprocal. There is respect, alignment, and shared growth. You do not have to chase affection or negotiate loyalty. Mutual recognition creates stability. Stability creates trust. Trust builds longevity. The same principle applies to professional spaces. You do not have to plead for recognition in environments that align with your calling. Your excellence will speak. Your consistency will demonstrate reliability. Your integrity will build credibility. Over time, these qualities create influence. Influence opens access without manipulation. Begging often leads to compromise. When you fear losing an opportunity, you may silence your voice, dilute your vision, or tolerate disrespect. But compromise erodes confidence. It weakens clarity. It distances you from purpose. Assignment, on the other hand, strengthens alignment. It allows you to remain authentic, empowers you to express your ideas fully. It invites you to contribute without fear. Understanding assignment also reshapes patience. Waiting no longer feels like rejection. It feels like preparation. You trust that timing is aligning. You trust that development is ongoing. You trust that when the right opportunity appears, it will not require you to beg for validation. It will recognize your preparation. There's dignity in knowing your value. Dignity does not demand applause. It does not seek constant affirmation. It rests in quiet confidence. That confidence becomes magnetic. It draws opportunities that respect your boundaries. It attracts spaces that honor your contribution. It filters out environments that rely on insecurity to maintain control. When you internalize that you will not beg for what is assigned, you begin to evaluate opportunities differently. You ask whether the environment aligns with your purpose. You assess whether the culture supports your growth. You consider whether the relationship honors your authenticity. These evaluations prevent you from entering spaces that require you to diminish yourself. Assignment also carries responsibility. You must steward your gifts wisely. You must cultivate discipline. You must remain teachable. Humility ensures sustainability. Confidence without humility becomes arrogance, but humility grounded in confidence creates balance. Balance strengthens influence. You are not competing for what is uniquely yours. Competition exists where identity is unclear. When identity is secure, comparison loses its power. You recognize that someone else's success does not threaten your assignment. Their path is distinct. Your path is distinct. Clarity eliminates jealousy. Gratitude replaces insecurity. As you grow in this awareness, your language changes. You speak with assurance rather than anxiety. You present yourself with clarity rather than apology. You communicate your boundaries without guilt. These shifts reinforce your identity. They reflect maturity. Opportunities aligned with your assignment will not require you to abandon your values. They will not pressure you to betray your integrity. They will not demand that you silence your voice. Instead, they will amplify your strengths. They will expand your influence. They will challenge you to grow while honoring who you are. You will not beg for access to rooms that are not prepared for your presence. If a space requires you to diminish yourself to remain, it is misaligned. Assignment feels different. It feels expansive. It feels purposeful. It feels affirming. Even when it stretches you, it does not degrade you. Confidence rooted in identity produces peace. Peace reduces urgency. Reduced urgency enhances discernment. Discernment protects your path. When you are not rushing, you see clearly. When you see clearly, you choose wisely. Wise choices align you with environments that respect your contribution and recognize your value without requiring you to plead for validation or compromise your authenticity to secure what has already been divinely designated for your life and aligned with your purpose. Momentum follows divine decree. Words are not empty when they are aligned with conviction, clarity, and spiritual authority. A decree is more than a hopeful statement. It is a deliberate release of intention backed by faith. When you speak with certainty about what is aligned with your purpose, you initiate movement. Atmospheres shift. Mindsets adjust. What once felt stagnant begins to respond because decisive language activates decisive action. There is power in articulation. Many remain stuck not because opportunity is absent, but because clarity is lacking. When you define what you are believing for, you give direction to your focus. Focus concentrates energy. Concentrated energy produces measurable progress. A decree narrows distractions and sharpens attention. It transforms vague desire into intentional pursuit. Divine decree begins internally before it manifests externally. It requires belief. Belief strengthens resolve. Resolve influences behavior. Behavior shapes results. When you truly believe something is possible, your posture changes. You stand differently. You speak differently. You approach challenges differently. Confidence anchored in belief attracts alignment. People respond to certainty. Environments adjust to conviction. Momentum is not accidental. It is cumulative. Small, consistent actions compound over time. A decree initiates those actions. It creates urgency without panic. It produces discipline without rigidity. You begin to align your habits with your declarations. When your habits reinforce your words, progress accelerates. Integrity between speech and action generates credibility. There are seasons when hesitation has delayed movement. Doubt can paralyze initiative. Fear can silence ambition. But when you issue a decree grounded in faith, you disrupt that paralysis. You decide that stagnation is no longer acceptable. Decision is powerful. It draws a line between past patterns and future possibilities. Once a decision is made, momentum becomes possible. Divine decree is not about controlling outcomes. It is about aligning with purpose. It is about declaring what is consistent with your calling. When your words reflect alignment, they carry authority. Authority influences perception. Perception influences opportunity. You begin to see options you previously overlooked. You recognize doors you previously ignored. Momentum builds when clarity meets commitment. Clarity without commitment remains theoretical. Commitment without clarity becomes scattered. When both exist together, progress gains traction. Traction produces confidence. Confidence fuels persistence. Persistence generates results. A decree also reshapes internal dialogue. Instead of rehearsing limitations, you rehearse possibilities. Instead of magnifying obstacles, you magnify strategy. Language influences thought patterns. Thought patterns influence emotional resilience. Emotional resilience supports sustained action. This internal transformation becomes the foundation for external change. Momentum requires consistency. A single declaration is a spark, but repeated alignment sustains the flame. You reinforce your decree through daily discipline, through focused effort, through strategic planning. Each action affirms your commitment. Each step forward strengthens belief. There are invisible barriers that dissolve when conviction intensifies. Procrastination weakens. Distraction loses appeal. You become selective about how you invest time and energy. Focus sharpens priorities. Priorities clarify direction. Direction accelerates progress. Divine decree also impacts relationships. When you articulate vision clearly, others understand how to support you. Collaboration becomes intentional. Miscommunication decreases. Alignment strengthens partnerships. Shared clarity amplifies collective momentum. Momentum often begins subtly, a small breakthrough, a minor opportunity, a slight improvement. These early indicators signal movement. When you acknowledge them, gratitude reinforces faith. Gratitude sustains motivation. Motivation energizes persistence. As momentum builds, resistance may surface. Growth can challenge comfort zones. Expansion can test confidence. But decree reminds you of your commitment. It anchors you in purpose. It strengthens your resilience. Obstacles become signals to refine strategy rather than reasons to retreat. Divine decree is rooted in responsibility. You cannot declare advancement while maintaining habits that hinder progress. Words must align with action. Vision must align with discipline. Discipline transforms aspiration into reality. Momentum accelerates when you eliminate internal contradictions, when you stop declaring growth while entertaining doubt, when you stop speaking confidence while rehearsing insecurity. Congruence between belief and behavior creates power. Power attracts opportunity. Your environment responds to your energy. When you operate with clarity and conviction, you influence atmosphere. Conversations become purposeful. Decisions become strategic. Opportunities become aligned. Alignment increases efficiency. Efficiency enhances productivity. Momentum is sustained by adaptability. As progress unfolds, adjustments may be necessary. Flexibility ensures continuity. Rigidity can stall movement. Decree provides direction, but wisdom refines execution. Continuous learning strengthens strategy. When you speak with intention, you take ownership of your trajectory. Ownership replaces passivity. Passivity waits for circumstances to shift. Ownership initiates change. Initiative attracts response. Response generates advancement. Momentum creates confidence cycles. Small wins reinforce belief. Reinforced belief inspires bolder action. Bolder action yields greater results. Results deepen conviction. Conviction strengthens decree. Divine decree also strengthens identity. You begin to see yourself as capable, prepared, and aligned. This self-perception influences choices. You pursue opportunities that reflect your growth. You decline invitations that contradict your vision. Discernment protects progress. As you continue declaring with clarity and acting with discipline, momentum becomes tangible. Projects move forward. Ideas materialize. Connections strengthen. Expansion unfolds. What once felt distant begins to approach. Momentum following divine decree is not sudden chaos. It is strategic acceleration. It is movement guided by purpose. It is growth supported by discipline. It is expansion sustained by integrity. Each step builds upon the previous one. Each action reinforces alignment. Each decision advances direction, creating a steady progression that reflects clarity, commitment, resilience, and unwavering belief aligned with purpose and expressed through consistent action that transforms intention into measurable advancement.